Hey everybody, it's the Heretic. So I want to make a video real quick about this kid who shot up a high school. His parents are being charged as culpable with involuntary manslaughter, as I understand it, in the wake of his actions. I want to talk about why that is stupid. And I'm prepared to concede that maybe I don't have all the facts yet. I haven't followed this case as stringently as I followed the Rittenhouse case and a lot of other things that I've talked about. And if you've encountered me in the comment sections, you know, I may have followed those a little more diligently. This one I'm still a little fuzzy on. But let's talk about it. So as I understand it, they bought this kid a pistol for Christmas. The media, of course, playing it up. They keep going out of their way to refer to it as a semi-automatic, like that's just terrifying. But anyway, so they bought this thing, and then between the buying of the gun and the incident, something happened at school. Okay. So now apparently the parents are culpable because the weapon was not secured. Well, first, let's point out that the child, he's not a child, he's 15, that the 15-year-old did not have the weapon in his possession. His parents actually had it in their possession in their room. Now, they've only had it for 2 or 3 days. I don't know if they have any other weapons or not, but if they don't, it would make perfect sense why they don't have a safe or some sort of lockbox. A lot of times, you know, people, they don't get those things directly. I personally, I have kids, and in the years that I've owned firearms, I never had a safe until I had kids, and even then it was a year or so afterwards. When my children were born, when my eldest was born, the guns went up high. He can't climb, he can't stand, he can't move. As he became more mobile and he got to where he could walk around freely and could pull himself up, okay, now the guns go in a safe, and they will remain in a safe until such time as he is old enough to understand no. You see what I'm saying right now? Right now, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, they're old enough to see you function these tools or to look at them and figure out how to function them. But they don't understand consequences. They don't understand ramifications of your actions. By the time your kid is 15, they understand that. They understand that this is an action and this is not an okay action, and this is what the consequences of pointing this at someone while it is loaded and pulling the trigger are. So we need to be clear about that. When we try to hold these parents accountable, that's my first point, is you need to understand that this was not some kid who needed to be protected from the tool itself. It's just like kitchen knives, okay? When my kids were younger, kitchen knives were put completely out of their reach. We keep them away from ovens and hot stoves. In fact, that would probably be a pretty good litmus test. If you don't allow your kid around the stove or a fireplace when it's hot because they're not quite old enough to understand consequences of putting your hand on that, then you need to have your weapons completely and totally secured, because they cannot be taught to not interact with those. Now, on to the real point, because the big argument seems to be, you know, they bought him the gun for Christmas, but that argument falls apart. It wasn't in his possession, but you say, well, they should have had it more secured. And you think that makes them culpable? All right, let's assess that. So let's say everything else had happened exactly the way it did. The school meeting, you know, the history this kid had, the whole 9 yards. Let's say one thing was different though. They had put the gun in the lockbox. Okay. So the kid goes to the drawer. Okay, we're in my kitchen. Kid goes to the drawer. He opens the drawer. Let's get some props going here. And he pulls out. Oh, come on. Do something creative. Why not? He pulls out 2 kitchen knives. Sticks them in his backpack. Goes to school and takes the life of 4 or 5 kids his own age. Would you still hold his parents liable? Would you still say his parents are to blame for that? Now, if you say yes, hold on, let me give you another example. You buy your kid a car. He's 15, you say, this is your car. You can't have it yet. You can't keep it in your possession. You can't keep the keys. You can't operate it as you please. But it is yours. You hang the keys in your bedroom, the car is in your garage. This kid gets bullied. He sees his bullies all gathered together in a group, say just in a little field or something, okay? Or at just outside of a McDonald's or somewhere where they can eat outside. So he comes back home, he gets those keys, he jumps in that car, keys out of your room, and he drives that car down the road and plows into that group of kids. Kills 3 or 4 of them, 4 or 5 of them. Is that on you? There are 2 answers here. You can say yes, at which point you've excused yourself from the conversation. You are not rational enough to make clear decisions. Or you can say no, that's not on you. Okay, so now we're going to give you a litmus test, a more direct test. Let's alter the parameters. Because your only argument is he didn't articulate an interest in using knives or bricks or going to the closet and getting a hammer out and using it. Another great example. If he went and got a hammer, would that be on you? He got a hammer and he took it to school with him. Okay. Would that be on you? But I digress. Let's say that he had articulated he wanted to use an axe or a hatchet or kitchen knives or a hammer. And you'd locked all that up because he'd articulated that, right? So instead he goes to the closet and he gets your gun. Because that wasn't locked up, but he never articulated he wanted to use that. If your answer is still, yes, I would still blame them, then what you've just demonstrated is that you're arguing in bad faith. What this is really about is the gun. Okay? You either wanted them to completely lock him down and prevent him from even possibly having anything he could use as a weapon, which is virtually impossible, or you're really just making a big deal about the gun. It's a gun. He had a gun. And they bought him a gun. Can you believe that? They bought him a gun. Yes, I can. Now, if it comes out, and bear in mind, I've already conceded I don't have all the details here. I don't have them all. And new details could emerge or could have already emerged that I'm unfamiliar with that would completely alter my position. For example, if they encouraged his behavior, if they encouraged him to do this at all, or if they purchased the weapon to facilitate him doing that, that's a big yeah, that's a problem. The problem with that is that would be more direct. It wouldn't be involuntary manslaughter. So what they're trying to say with that is that they passively created the situation for this to occur. And if your argument is that by buying him a gun, just at all, or by having a gun in the house, they passively facilitated this. Oh, the gun wasn't secured? Yeah, we've done been over that. He's 15. He comprehends, don't touch this. He's 15. He also comprehends that you can take most safes including those, especially those little pistol safes, and beat them open with a hammer. Okay. But that's, no, never mind. The bottom line is, you're making this about the gun. I've heard, I have not confirmed this, but I've heard that the prosecutor has stated that they are basically using this to present arguments for gun control. That's not a verbatim statement, that was the gist. That they're trying to use this to point out that there are problems with guns in homes and kids, and that's absurd. And you need to be very careful about how you approach this, because that's becoming your argument. If your kid does something bad, it's on you. Or are we just talking about guns here? If we're just talking about guns here, you're done. Your whole argument is kaput. Because you're trying to take this incident and make something out of it. Now, him being charged with terrorism, that's another, you know what, I'm prepared to deal with that. My issue with it is, how is it that a kid who's lashing out moronically and, you know, the words really don't exist to describe how disgustingly repulsive the actions taken by this person was. Bully or no bully, you just don't kill people for that, okay? And you certainly don't do what you did. But once again, I digress. You're going to call that terrorism. But somebody plowing an SUV into a parade over their political ideologies or social ideologies not being acquiesced to, that's not terrorism. I need to refresh my definitions. Apparently, I'm missing something. I do find it odd. Anyway, this is stupid. This as I currently understand it. And if I'm missing something, please feel free to let me know in the comments. I will happily retract or publicly alter my position. And if you've encountered me before, you may not realize it, but I am very, very, very stringent when it comes to objective fact. If they did something that I have not addressed that changes the narrative, then it changes the narrative. But what I'm seeing right now, it really doesn't. One more time, reiterate it. They didn't have the weapon secured. That doesn't matter. Does it, well, does it imply a bit of negligence, perhaps? Something they wish they had done different and maybe should have done different? Maybe it would have changed things? Maybe. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's just like putting up a guardrail. Or we've all seen rails that are like caution. Because if you wanted to, if you really wanted to, you could just go right up and over that. It's not even a barrier. It's like putting a gun in a drawer and closing the drawer and saying, now don't get that, don't touch it. It's not really going to stop you any more than a little 4-foot high rail is. If you want to jump off the cliff, you're going to jump. You follow me? They're not responsible for that. You are. This is stupid, and we have to stop trying to sacrifice people on the altar of our self-righteous indignation. This was a tragedy. This was awful. This kid should burn. And should his parents be lambasted a little bit here? Yes, absolutely. You could have done a lot more to fix this, but so could a lot of people. A lot of people could have. And deep down, parents have this tendency to not want to believe their kid would do that. They might have talked about it. He says a lot of things, but he's not really going to do that. And most of the time, the vast majority of the time, they're correct. But every now and again, once a blue moon, they're not. A lot of the warning signs were there with this kid, but some of them weren't. If you look at the usual warning signs for this sort of incident, some of them were there, some of them weren't. I think we can all agree that this was awful. I hope we can all be reasonable and not try to find somebody's head to put on a spit. Okay? Maybe that's heresy.